My name is Sean Beller. I'm the Governor of the American First Republic of the United States of America. We have two guests with us tonight in a meeting of mine and fact finding. There's a lot of people out there who are guessing at what different documents mean, and historic events have occurred, and there's a simple way of explaining it. There's a very good source document. Those who don't want to refer to the law of nations, or those who don't care about the law of nations, conduct and behavior of sovereigns, they need to realize that under the Law of War manual put in place in 2016, that the law of nations is actually the foundation, and the law of war is a branch of, it's a counterpart of the law of nations. So we'll move forward here and to explain what the compact is, where people are founded, and we'll also move forward in explanation of several things. Let's start off with a screen share. Get back up to where I had intended to start. There it is. All right. The end or object of civil society is to procure for citizens whatever they stand in need of, for the necessities, the conveniences, and the accommodation of life, and in general, whatever constitutes happiness. In America, that just so happens to be in our foundation to be freedom and liberty, rightful liberty. The difference between liberty is that without the extent of the limits of those around us, the rightful liberty is with the extent of the drawn within limits of those who are around us. We was founded on rightful liberty. That's what constitutes happiness in America, on our foundation. So to move forward with the peaceful possession of property, a method of obtaining justice with security, and finally a mutual defense against all external violence. These are elements of being a people. All of those things that are necessary constitute happiness. There are elements of being a people. These are the things that have to be founded in compact. It is now easy to form a just idea of the perfection of a state or nation. Everything it must conspire to promote the ends we have pointed out. In the act of association, that's the only way to maintain compact. It's not just signing a piece of paper. It requires action. We'll get to that in a moment. By virtue of which a multitude of men form together a state or nation. The compact itself defines what a multitude of men are. Each individual has entered into engagements with all. That means every inhabitant entered into engagements with those who are not in a official capacity, who also entered into agreements with them to promote the general welfare, and all have entered into the engagements with each individual, which we're going to show in a moment. In fact, let's just go ahead and show that right now. This is the man who wrote the U.S. Constitution, 1789. Governor Morris, afterward Minister to France and the United States, Senator from New York, the accomplished statesman to whom, in the Federal Convention, in which he was delegated from Pennsylvania, was entrusted the rewriting of the Constitution, who having changed these words, we the people of the states, remember that, etc., as adopted by the convention. That's the way that 1789 was adopted in the convention. Then they changed the words before anybody else entered into it. And there was only 7 that I was able to find, 7 states at that point. Actually only 5, but I gave benefit of the doubt to 2. Later works, I'll be able to show this. To we people of the United States, thereby they redefined who the people was in that Constitution. They were delegates of the several states. They was not including the individuals. I'll show that the compact, again, where I was just then, I'll go back to it, show that it must include the individual. a compact. People of the United States must be supposed to have known their meaning. The man that wrote this must have been supposed to have known the meaning of those words, declared years afterwards that the Constitution was a compact, which is not true. Compact is entered in natural identity. That's the only way to remain in dominion over your legislation without being restricted in person. Restricted in person, your legislation can sanction, which means that you can be disbarred or dislicensed. You can be fined, you can be in prison. So that part is not correct. The word compact has been diluted by many bar associates, and many wanted to have power over a population to enslave them. It says that it was a compact. It was actually a social contract. It was by the authority of the social contract of any trade. That was the Treaty of Paris. I'll prove farther in that in a minute. Not between individuals. Okay, so if you think the 1789 Constitution includes you, or that you're a party to it, it's not between individuals. You're an individual. Unless you're holding an office of a sovereign. A sovereign is a body of by the authority of a people. It's a legislative body by the authority of a people. It's more than one. Okay? So it's not between individuals, but between political societies, leaders of political societies. Each enjoying sovereign power and, of course, equal rights. So to go back to where we was, each individual, okay, that's what the compact requires. In the act of association by virtue of which a multitude of men form together, and it doesn't say legislators, it says men, form together a state or nation. Each individual has entered into engagements with all. So if there's no place for you to be as an individual without being in capacity of an officer, then it's not a compact. To promote the general welfare and to have entered into engagements with each individual to facilitate for him the means of supplying his necessities and to protect and defend him. It is manifest that these reciprocal engagements can no otherwise be fulfilled than by maintaining this. I can get this straight. Sorry, folks, my computer don't work perfect. Okay, now I found myself. Okay, to stop from having to have lost everybody's attention span, I'm just going to continue on with the fact that okay, by maintaining the political association, the entire nation is then obliged to maintain that association. It's not just signing a social compact, it's showing up every day. This is not something that you just do one time and walk away from. And it is to maintain the elements of being a people, which we have previously discussed. and as their preservation depends on its continuance, it thence flows that every nation is obliged to perform the duty of self-preservation. This obligation, so natural to each individual of God's creation, is not derived nations immediately from nature. So if you think because you inhabited it or you inherited it, that means that you're a people, no, it's not derived to nations immediately. Just because the nation was created by a people in compact, that don't make you a compact. But from the agreement by which society is formed, it is therefore not absolute, but conditional. That is to say, it supposes a human act, to wit, social compact. You've not taken human action. If there's no people in compact, then it doesn't exist. People don't exist at that point. And that's what has happened through wars of attrition to the point of collapsing compact. We're going to continue to explain how this has occurred in war and what that has brought about. But our foundation remains perpetual. It can never end. All we have to do is restore the compacts. Compact is where a rightful government and people are founded. Only. It's the only place. And as compacts may be dissolved by common consent of the parties, if the individuals that compose a nation should unanimously agree to break the link that binds them, it would be lawful for them to do so. But it would have to happen. There would have to be what? A unanimous vote of every one of the people in the nation states in order to break the link that bound them. As far as I know, there was only, as I say, 7 delegates. There was possibly delegates of the Articles of Confederation in the Constitutional Convention, and 3 of them definitely said no. It was not there. They to attend. It was not going to be a party to it. So there was never been an requirement of unanimous required vote that would break the link that binds the Articles of Confederation, let alone the sovereign states. Just because there was a military coup, possibly, that does not end it. The sovereign states, because they should unanimously, everybody in the compacts of each one of the states would have to unanimously break the link that binds them in sovereign states. There's other things that I can bring forward that shows that during the 1863 to 1871 period of time, that carpetbaggers was sent down by the authority of a custom, military custom, and they replaced the delegates that was actually in place by the people in compact of these sovereign states. But at any rate, I'm going to continue to read the compact. It would be lawful for them to do so, and thus, if I don't lose myself, and thus to destroy the state or nation. That's the only way. Everybody in the compact of this, each one of the states would have had to unanimously. That's never happened. But they would doubtlessly incur a degree of guilt if they took this step without just and weighty reason. For civil societies are approved by the law of nature, which recommends them to mankind as the true means of supplying all their wants and of effectively advancing towards their own perfection. Moreover, civil society is so useful, nay, so necessary to all citizens that it may well be considered as morally impossible for them to consent unanimously, break it without necessity. All right, so that covers the compact, and it covers the elements of being a people founded in compact, and it covers what's required is the act of association, and it also covers preservation depending upon compact, and it also covers that it must include the individuals of the society, otherwise it's not a compact. You'll be able to read rewind this and go back into it to go back and see that it includes all of the individuals or it's not a compact. To move forward in this in the law of nations, the next step is commerce that I wanted to explain. It is commerce that enables individuals and whole nations to procure those commodities which they stand in need of but cannot find at home. Commerce is divided into home and foreign trade. Former is that carried on in states between several inhabitants. The latter is carried on with foreign nations. The home trade of a nation is of great use. It furnishes all the citizens with the means of procuring whatever they want, as either necessary, useful, or agreeable. It causes a circulation of money. You don't have your own money, not a people. These are the things that's got to be established in a compact. Not able to carry on trade, if your compact does not establish a means of carrying on trade, which is necessary to furnish all the citizens with the means of procuring whatever they want, happiness, then it's not a compact. It incites industry, animates labor, and by affording substance to a great number of people, contributes to increase the population and power of the state. Same reasons show the use of foreign trade, which is moreover attended with these two advantages. By trading with foreigners, the nation procures such things as neither nature nor art can furnish in the country it occupies. And secondly, if its foreign trade properly directed, it increases the riches of the nation and may become the source of wealth and plenty. Of this example of the Carthaginian, for lack of better terms, I can't hardly pronounce it.
Carthaginians.
Carthaginians, thank you, sir. Among the ancients, and that of England and Dutch among the moderns, afford remarkable proofs. Carthage, by her riches, counterbalanced the fortune, courage, and greatness of Rome. Holland has assembled immense sums in her marshes. A company of her merchants possesses whole kingdom back, and the governor of Batavia exercises command over the monarchs of India. To what a degree of power and glory has England arrived! Formerly her warlike princes and inhabitants make glorious conquests, which they affords lost by those reverses of fortune so frequent in war. At present, it is chiefly commerce that places her hand in balance of Europe. This is another part of the law of nations that needs to be fully understood. The elements of a people and what currency, how important it is. Your own currency in commerce, your own medium of exchange. By having a forced foreign international currency, the money changers have changed the value of what our foundational currency was. Our foundational currency was either gold or silver coin, and if you was caught with another type of, they call it currency, some may call it tender for payment, public and private. It's caught with a something foreign, a foreign instrument. The sentence was death in the revolutionary period of time. That's how important it is to have your own medium of exchange, currency, in commerce. That's one of the elements of commerce. Commerce is one of the elements of people. Now we're going to discuss the right of postal minimum. This is where we are today. Because of the fortunate events that have took place because of the dissolution of the U.S. Incorporated 1871 Charter, this has brought several states back to a position of being able to restore. This is not something that the inferior order is doing for us. This is something that we will have to do for ourselves, and it is their duty, best of my knowledge, to defend us in doing so. So I'm going to read The right of postal minimum is that, in virtue of which persons and things taken by the enemy are restored to their former state, now coming again into power of the nation to which they belong. The sovereign is bound to protect the persons and property of his subject and to defend them against the enemy. When therefore a subject or any part of his property has fallen into the enemy's possession, should any fortunate event bring them again into the sovereign's power, it is undoubtedly his duty to restore them to their former condition. I'm going to yield for a second, and I'm going to ask the doctor to go ahead and do a little bit of reading in this section and try to expand upon it for me as well. I need a short break in speech. I yield. Doc, I can continue speaking for a minute if you're not ready. In the law of nations.
I'm bringing it up. I just need to find it real quick.
Okay, but just say something when you got it pulled up so that I can have a short break and speak. Just type
Can you just go back to the previous page real quick?
right a postal minimum. Type that in there.
Right, I'm there. I'm just trying to find the section.
Number 9, ninth time that it's listed.
Can you just scroll up just so that I can find the section?
Don't mess
Go
up.
5 foundation. Okay.
It's chapter 14 of the right of postal minimum.
It is undoubtedly his duty to restore.
Yes.
Okay. Yep. Got it. It is undoubtedly his duty to restore them to their former condition, to reestablish the persons in all their rights and obligations, to give back the effects to the owners, in a word, to replace everything on the same footing on which it stood previous to the enemy's capture. The justice, or I can share my screen if you want.
Yes, sir. I'll stop my screen share.
Okay, tell me when to. Just moving over. The justice or injustice of the war makes no difference in this case, not only because, according to the voluntary law of nations, the war, as to its effects, is reputed just on both sides, but likewise because war, whether just or not, is a national concern, and if the subjects who fight or suffer in the national cause should, after they have, either in their persons or their property, fallen into the enemy's power, be, by some fortunate incident, restored to the hands of their own people, there is no reason why they should not be restored to their former condition. It is the same as if they had never been taken. If the war be just on the part of their nation, they were unjustly captured by the enemy, and thus nothing is more natural than to restore them as soon as it becomes possible. If the war be unjust, they are under no greater obligation to suffer in atonement for its injustice than the rest of the nation. Fortune brings down the evil on their heads when they are taken, she delivers them from it when they escape. Here again, it is the same as if they never had been captured. Neither their own sovereign nor the enemy has any particular right over them. The enemy has lost by one accident what he had gained by another.
That's good, Doc. That's good. That's a good stopping point. Let's elaborate on that and have a meeting of the mind on those words. What do you take away from the reading that we just did?
What I take away from the reading of this is that if a sovereign, so basically anyone captured in the result of war, if they be restored, is due to be restored to full as before the war had started.
Okay,
There is
so
no reason why they should not be restored to their former condition.
all right, so basically, if the several states had a disagreement at one point in history, and there was a reason why the U.S. Inc. was created to prevent the original Union, perpetual union, which South Carolina had put in their paperwork. South Carolina stated, "We hereby secede from the perpetual union, original perpetual union." Um, well, that would have contracted the inferior order, which was brought forward in 1789, to protect the perpetual union. That's what it was really contracted for on the high seas. We'll discuss that more in the Treaty of Paris. But at any rate, because of the fact that the disagreements between the several states, that gave the condition of U.S. Incorporated the ability to basically take over. Um, and it's, for a lack of better terms, that's the easiest way for me to put it in layman's terms. But at this point, when the U.S. Inc. solved, then that gives the ability for us to restore our compacts. And I'll point out the U.S. Constitution here shortly, where it states clearly, the states shall not compact except in a time of actual invasion or during actual invasion or during a time of imminent danger that will not permit of delay. We've actually been invaded. They've actually been invaded. Not only that, but they've also been involved in imminent danger that will not permit a delay, which also involved us in several states.
Yeah, and they've also colluded with pharmaceutical companies to release a known biologic toxin or agent to the people via a gene therapy modality, which, in which not only the spike protein itself, which is the biologic agent or toxin, but by the very medium, meaning the lipid nanoparticles and modified synthetic methyl pseudouridines, can also cause their own pathology and disease within the human body. So it's a direct attack on the people itself.
But let's make this clear that I'm not speaking of the entire U.S. Incorporated being guilty of this. I'm speaking of the criminals that have infiltrated that corporation. Those are the ones who have done exactly what Doc just mentioned. And that gave us the right, beginning January 6th, 2021, during the time of actual invasion and in a time of danger that will not permit a delay. This constitutes the rights for the states to compact in their former condition. So that's when the American First Republic moved quickly, was on the exact same day, January 6th, 2021. Doc, if you want to let me go ahead and do a screen share again, I'll move on to the next part of the presentation, trying to cover all of these things in a time that is going to be acceptable to the attention span and the schedule of most people today. So we're going to move to the word inferior order. The inhabitants is distinguished from citizens. And remember now, when it says citizens, in this context, it's speaking of lawful citizens, not citizens defined in a contract. Contract does not make law. It only changes the way law applies to the parties of the contract upon property within a contract and only administered from within. God made law. God's nature and nature's God makes law. It was here before man. Man only changes the way it's applied in contract to those who are a party to it, property within, and only administered from within contract, with contractual authority. So to move forward in this and say this again, the inhabitants as distinguished from lawful citizens, what it should say, are foreigners who are permitted to settle and stay in a country bound to the society by their residence. They're bound by residence. Not only that, but by receiving the benefits of society. They are subject to the law of the state while they reside in it, and they are obliged to defend it because it grants them protection. That's one of the benefits. Though they do not participate in all the rights of citizens, they enjoy only the advantages which law or custom gives them. Remember the word custom, because that's exactly what you have had in DC from 1789 to present. It is an inferior order custom. Citizens of them is kind of a citizen of an inferior order, and I will explain this in detail. The perpetual inhabitants are those who have received the right of perpetual residence. The citizen does not have cannot be denied re-entry and cannot be exiled. U.S. versus Valentine. I'll get into that in a moment. The only unequivocal guaranteed right of the U.S. citizen, perpetual residence. Okay. Perpetual inhabitants are those who receive the right of perpetual residence, the kind of citizen of an inferior order, and are united to society without participating in all of its advantages. You're one of those kinds of citizens of an inferior order. You may be united to the society without participating in all of its advantages. Let's jump over to U.S. versus Valentine real quick. That's not where it is. Give me a moment. There it is. Okay, U.S. versus Valentine. This is a U.S. Supreme Court case. Let me find where I need to bring forward first. A second. Here it is. Speaking of the U.S. Constitution, but the Constitution does not make the franchise per se a right of citizenship. Okay? So basically, the bottom line is you're not guaranteed franchise because you are defined as citizen in their private superior order or social contract. Move up farther a little bit. Here you go. Defendant's error lies in assuming that the right to vote is an essential right of citizenship. You think that you have the right to vote being a U.S. citizen. That's an error. It says it clearly. Where does it say that? Let's see. The only absolute and unequivocal right of citizenship is to residence within the territorial boundaries of the United States. A citizen cannot be either deported or denied re-entry. So if you're looking at being a U.S. citizen, you think you have a right other than that? It's not correct according to the law of nations. It's not correct according to U.S. versus Valentine. So that pretty well covers what I needed to point out right here. All of the links for this will be put in this with this video when it goes into publication. So that covers the right of citizens of the United States. The only absolute unequivocal guaranteed right is residence, and you go back to the law of nations. Inhabitants are those who have received the right of perpetual residence. These are the kinds of citizens of an inferior order. That's a custom. An inferior order is a custom, not a law. Not a lawful people. They may be defined in contract to be the word people. They may redefine the word people in their contract, and it may apply that way to those who are party to it, property within, and only administered from within. But that don't make it so in law. And are united to the society without participating in all of its advantages. So in other words, if you don't have the right to vote, you're not participating in all of its advantages. You don't have political rights to defense, then you're not participating in all of its advantages. Their children follow the condition of their fathers. There's what you inhabit, is the condition of being a U.S. citizen. That's the part that you're born into. That's because of the contract. You're considered property within. Contract lives on. And as of the state, and as the state has given to these the right of perpetual residence, the right passes on to their posterity. Now let's go right back over here. Absolute and unqualified right of your citizenship to residents within the territorial boundaries of the United States cannot either be deported or denied re-entry. That means perpetual. Perpetual means forever. This right is forever. Cannot be denied. You're the perpetual inhabitant. Go back to law nation. Where does it say that? Perpetual resident. All right, I'm going to stop for a second, and I'd like for Doc to expand on that, give some insight of his from his view.
Well, just really quick, on this aspect where it says in the case that you had mentioned, oh, I'm trying to bring it up now.
U.S. versus Valentine?
Yeah, I have it. I'm just trying to find the place. The Yeah, the Constitution does not make the franchise per se a right of citizenship. The Minor v. Happersett, in that case, of, because this is a case of voting. So it says voting is an elective franchise, is a privilege of citizenship in the highest sense of the word. It is the privilege preservative of all rights and privileges, and especially of the right of the citizen to participate in his or her government. So it is elective. It is not a right. It is a privilege.
I'm glad you said that because I was almost forgetting that fact to point out. If it did minors, and guess what? Guess what they consider the U.S. citizen to be? They're the minors. They're the inferior order inhabitants. They don't have franchise. They don't have the right to it. They don't have the right to vote. If you're a minor, you don't have rights. And that's the way you're treated as a U.S. citizen.
You can even
So,
see later on in that sentence how minor is capitalized and italicized. Later in that, and as in minor women prior to the adoption of the 19th Amendment. I believe that's what you're referencing.
correct. Right on the money.
Yep.
So that's an excellent point out. I'm glad to have you in here tonight because that's very important to realize. The Bar Association has a treaty with the U.S. Incorporated Congress, and that treaty made them a party to every U.S. state, which is a contractual defined state. Social contract. I'm trying to point out the difference between the social compact and the social contract. Social contract, it will not include the individual. A place to be without being restricted in person. There's no place for you in it. That means social contract. If you're able to enter it without being restricted in person, you're able to take action by the dictates of your own conscience without being sanctioned in restricted person, then it could possibly be a compact. All of these things learned by following the law of nations. It explains it in detail. It takes quite a while to realize what all of these things mean in conjuncture with one another, what the force and effect in law is of these instruments or documents during the events, historical events, historic times when they were signed, parties who entered into it, so on and so forth. Since the franchise is not per se a right of citizenship, it flows that it is not a precondition to imposition of duties of citizenship. You still have the duty, even though you don't have the franchise, even though you're not a party to it, you still have the imposition of duties of citizenship. All right, let's move to the next part of this explanation. This is the Law of Nations as amended 2016. That was the last time that it was amended. It states clearly that they worked from battle, the Law of Nations. That was the foundation. The Law of War is a branch of the Law of Nations. Again, you can pull up DOD, Law of War Manual, June 2015, updated 2016. You can Press the Control and the F key at the same time. Get an additional search bar. Type in Law of Nations. Find what we're presenting here for you today. Same thing about Hemorrhage to Battle, Law of Nations. Pull it up. Click on the Control and the F key at the same time. Type words of interest in the additional search bar that pops up. You'll be able to find the exact same source documents that we're reading here today. There's nothing that's been created by us except the explanation, how to be able to read the force and effect of things like the Treaty of Paris, in which the King of Britain, France, and Ireland dubbed the Americans esquires, his knights, in a different capacity. They agreed in that Treaty of Paris to be afforded protection on the high seas. So we're going to look at that again. Voluntary submission to a foreign power under the law of nations. When a nation is not capable of preserving herself from insult and oppression, she may procure the protection of a more powerful state. Might as well say country or nation, say state, in the wording of the law of nations. If she obtains this by only engaging to perform certain articles, should say actions, as to pay a tribute in return for safety obtained. That's what we're doing by having our soldiers, our offspring, sold to die. We're paying a tribute in return for safety obtained. To furnish her protector with troops, that's what we have done. Our offsprings are her troops. This sovereign be free to fall under a power. Actually, I should say the inferior order agreed, not the several states, but the inferior order, and to embark in all his wars as a joint concern, but still reserving to herself the right of administering her own government at pleasure. It is simple treaty of protection. That's what the Treaty of Paris was. That does not at all derogate from her sovereignty and differs not from the ordinary treaties of alliance. Otherwise than as it creates a difference in the dignity of the contracting party. I'm going to yield for a moment. I would like for Doc to elaborate in this.
Yeah, I would just like to also point out the Charming Betsy reference on this, where I'm gonna share screen here. Just gonna flip over real quick because this was an amazing point. This is again Department of Defense Law of War Manual updated July 2023. So this is the most recent version. In here it says, it has also been observed that an act of Congress ought never be construed to violate the law of nations if any other possible construction remains. So here, the law of war, our own Department of Defense, it has been observed that any act of Congress ought never be construed to violate the law of nations if any other possible construction remains, and consequently can never be construed to violate neutral rights or to affect neutral commerce further than is warranted by the law of nations as understood in this country. Again, referencing back to Vattel. And I'll stop share and I'll bring it back over to you.
Okay, so I'll go right back over to the Department of Defense as soon as I can get this pulled up. This is the 8th time that it's listed, Law of Nations, and the Law of War Manual, explaining that the law of war seeks to avoid continuous disputes between belligerents about whether actions are militarily necessary by establishing general rules, independent of circumstances and of certain and easy application, and thus permits or tolerates every act which in its essential nature is adopted to attaining the end of the war. See, that's what they're supposed to be doing, is attaining the end of the war, that was civil war, that was brought in 1861, I guess was the first year that Lincoln appeared. And
And I wanted to Also wanted to just expand upon one other thing regarding inferior order, kind of just to bring it back. I'm going to share my screen real quick.
Sorry,
Okay, and this kind of goes back to inferior order. So we just learned about, you know, regarding citizens, perpetual inhabitants are those who, having received the right of perpetual residence, these are kind of citizens of an inferior order. We had the case showing that basically, according to uh, um, the Supreme Court, how defendants errorize in assuming that rights that the proposition that the only absolute and unqualified right of citizenship is residence within the territorial boundaries of the United States. So this is our own Supreme Court saying that the only absolute unqualified right of citizenship is that of an inferior order, because that's exactly what the law of nations is saying here. So they're echoing that according to um, our own Supreme Court. The only other time that inferior order appears in the law of nations is as it relates to the instruments of war, the raising of troops, and their commanders or the subordinate powers in war. And here it says the sovereign is the sovereign is the real author of war, which is carried on in his name and by his order. The troops, officers, soldiers, and in general, all those whose agency the sovereign makes war are only instruments in his hands. They execute his will and not their own. The arms and all the apparatus of things used in war are instruments of an inferior order. Military law is inferior to that of the sovereign. The sovereign is only recognized and established in compact by a people that choose to exercise that right. So the only way that this war ends is when the sovereign is able to direct those in military custom and all the apparatus of things used in that war and all the instruments that are of an inferior order under his direction or her direction, their direction as a sovereign people in compact. I yield.
Very powerful.
that
Very powerful.
explained it. That was very good ending words right there.
And Derek Johnson needs to see that. That was very powerful, Doc. Thank you for reading that, brother.
Blessings.
I do have another little share screen that I'm going to bring up here, if you guys don't mind. The event of what happens when the compact is ignored. This is the inevitable conclusion of that. So listen closely.
Jefferson said this: if those who administer the general government be permitted to transgress the limits fixed by the compact, by a total disregard of the special delegations of power therein contained, annihilation of the state governments and the erection upon their ruins of a general consolidation government will be the inevitable consequence.
We've long been there. I'll finish his words. I want to repeat this again so everybody can listen closely.
Jefferson said this: if those who administer the general government be permitted to transgress the limits fixed by the compact.
General government at the time was the Articles of Confederation. The general government at the time was those of sovereign states.
By a total disregard of the special delegations of power therein contained, annihilation of the state governments and the erection upon their ruins of a general consolidation government will be the inevitable consequence.
In other words, the power of the sovereignty of the state would be transferred to a central government. That would be the inevitable consequence. And so it was done. That's exactly what happened. I'm going to play it one more time.
Jefferson said this: if those who administer the general government be permitted to transgress the limits fixed by the compact.
Permitted to transgress the limits fixed by the compact. What is our duty as people? Being a people in compact, what is our duty? It is to make sure that they don't transgress upon the limits affixed by the compact. That's why the association, maintaining the association is necessary. You don't just sign a piece of paper and walk away, folks. You don't just go vote one time every 4 years, allowing to be represented in a condition where you're in corporate person restricted and you can't have a voice with any authority in law until the next 4 years election comes up, giving them the right to be the electors and to be represented again with your voice silenced. Compact gives you dominion over the legislation if you have one, because you're not restricted in person in the compact. That's why it is indispensable. It's the foundation. So I'm going to play this one more time in entirety so everybody can listen to it nonstop.
Jefferson said this: if those who administer the general government be permitted to transgress the limits fixed by the compact, by a total disregard of the special delegations of power therein contained, annihilation of the state governments and the erection upon their ruins of a general consolidation government will be the inevitable consequence.
We've long been there. I'm going to pull up the state of Maryland Constitution as well to show in this presentation. I'm going to yield for a minute and let you guys carry on some communication concerning what's been presented tonight.
I think what it shows and proves is that there's a lot of work that needs to be done regarding those individuals willing to reclaim sovereignty within compact, as it is their right according to the law of nations, in order to get a government under control, who views them as citizens with no other right other to exist perpetually under their thumb.
Sean, check the chat here in Zoom. I sent a link to the Maryland Constitution. It'll bring up Article 1 right on it.
Thank you, Josh. You was very helpful right there on that, because that's not the link that I need, though. It's not that. Okay, yes, it is.
Yes,
all right,
sir,
I'm going back to a screen share as soon as I can get it up. Here we go. All right, back to the screen share. Now, this is not something that I said. This is something that was already written. It's written in 7 different constitutions, but this one right here is still existing today. That all government of right. Not talking about of custom. I'm talking about of right. That means there was express consent, not tacit, but express consent. That all government of right originates from the people. Where are the people? It's founded in compact only. Both of them are founded in compact only. That's the only. Let me get to this one word. I wish that I could make this really big. There's that word right there that I've got lit up. I hope everybody can see that real good. I probably messed it up more. There's Article 2, Article 1. Yeah. So there it is. Where else can a rightful government of people be founded? Does anybody want to elaborate on that, Josh?
Yeah, it means it can only be founded in compact. That means it takes the human act to which the social compact, as clearly stated in a Law of Nations by Emmerich de Vattel, and as emphasized many times in the Law of War Manual, as we clearly have been showing you. And I'll yield.
You may have the government of a custom, but you're not going to have a rightful government. You're not going to have a lawful people unless you have the foundation of the compact. If anybody wants to disagree with this, I'm happy to look at some evidence, because there's times that I really wish that I was not right. It's just going to take a big part of this population to step up in compact, to be a people, to do what's necessary in commerce, to maintain the element of commerce, their own lawful money that is separate from any other nation across the sea. They're going to have to step up. They're going to have to defend peace. They're going to have to offer a way to peace, which is the compact. Compact is the offering of peace. If others wish to war upon it, that's exactly what the inferior order was put in place to deal with, the high seas and monarchs that will not remain in honor during defeat. I yield.
Amen and amen.
You may have we may have all here in America been born into U.S. citizenship, which is a citizen of an inferior order because it's defined in a private contract that does not include the individuals of the society and natural identity. We may have inherited being the right to perpetual residency, but that's all. The rest requires the human action. It's not something that's derived directly from nature. It's not an absolute. Covered that in the Law of Nations. First this video and see it there as it's written. But it is supposed to human action, social compact to fit. With that, I'll yield. If anybody else has got something that they think should be brought forward that we previously discussed to help everybody see the source documents that we didn't write, we're just providing them. Okay, we're providing you a good understanding of their documents. We're showing it within the Law of Nations that the Law of Nations is the foundation, and the Law of War is a branch of the Law of Nations. In fact, I'll pull that up in a moment when I get a chance to do a screen share again. I want to yield, and I'll let Doc proceed.
I was just bringing up that that mention again within the Law of Nations where it says it, this obligation, this is our obligation, so natural to each individual of God's creation. It is not derived to nations immediately from nature, but from the agreement by which civil society is formed.
So you didn't inherit that.
Nope. And the other thing is, I also kind of want
to. It's not a choice either. I want you to go back to the second word right there. It's an obligation, which means duty.
Yep.
It's not a choice. Either you're going to do your duty of a nation, or you're going to be in derelict. It's that simple.
And there are some making the argument that the Declaration of Independence is a compact, but this is, and that it is a compact in common law, but a declaration in common law is a criminal indictment. So what's being done within the Declaration of Independence is not the formation of a compact. This is a common law criminal indictment of the king for a broad set of usurpations and injustices. Okay. And when we really kind of get into it, there is no mention of a compact. There's no mention of a covenant within it. Now, references are made to the laws of nature and nature's God, which entitled them a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to separation.
So that's a reference. It's not a covenant. It's a reference.
Correct. But then they're also giving that. So this is separation. This is a dissolution document. This is not an establishment document. And then even when we get further down into it, we say that whenever the form of government becomes destructive to these ends, it's the right of the people to alter or abolish it and to institute no new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. So this is making a reference to an additional action which will need to be done to lay the foundation on the principles and organizing its powers. This document does not organize any powers. The only thing that the Declaration of Independence does is provide a notice of dissolution via a criminal indictment, because in essence, the king is violating the law of nations via common law or in common law. And when we get down to the bottom, we can even see that the form is like, we therefore the representatives of the United States of America. It's not, no, in General Congress assembled appealing. So this is like a jury. They're assembled in a jural assembly appealing to the supreme judge. So this is an appeal to the supreme judge of the world for the rectitude of our intentions, because this is a lawful document of indictment against the king. Do in the name and by the authority of the good people of these colonies solemnly publish and declare that these colonies are and of right ought to be free and independent states. So they ought to be free and independent states. But how are those states organized? Where's the compact that's showing that it is that's already been done? I mean, international recognition of the United States did not come until after the end of the Revolutionary War and with the establishment of the Articles of Confederation, because that's what's required for international recognition of a people in compact.
Well, let's first point out the fact that that's lowercase t right there, and that is 1789, and it may also be construed to be 1871 in trust. However, the United States of America with a capital letter T is actually the Articles of Confederation, title, style, being. Mr. Eddie, do you think that you could pull that up under the treaty, under the Articles of Confederation, and show the style of this confederation shall be, title, style, being? Change one letter of one word from uppercase to lowercase, you've changed the title. That means it's an entirely different entity. So that is something to look at in your readings of historic documents. There was two United States of America, one with a lowercase t and one with an uppercase t. Lowercase is 1789 and 1871 incorporated. The uppercase is 1776, finalized 1781, in which there was never a unanimous agreement to dissolve the ties of compacts of people of several states. That agreement never occurred. We're being restored in a time of coastal minimi. But if we only step up being a people in compact, that's the only way it can happen. They have a job. They're cleaning up their federal. They're cleaning up what they do on the high seas. They're cleaning up what happens abroad. Stay out of their way. I recommend highly that we stay out of the crossfire during the time of reconstitution, reconstruction of the executive office, during the time of devolution is what the terms are being used, and I've seen plenty of executive orders in that inferior military custom that proves that that is taking place. So, if you want to know what you can do in a civil capacity, get into the compact, go back and establish elements of the people of your sovereign state, defend the peace of your sovereign state, allow the industrial and let me change my words, U.S. military to do their duty in defending us during this time of coastal minimi. Are you?
Sean, I cannot access the document. It is on archives.gov/historical-docs/articles-of-confederation, if you can remember that. If not, I'll tell it to you again. My internet is down and I am on cellular on the phone now. So if somebody wants to do this real quick, archives.gov/historical-docs/articles.
I'm in, I got it.
Okay, there you go. Good job. Thank you.
What do you need me to scroll down to?
Should be able to go down and find the actual Articles of Confederation document, and you'll have to zoom in, and it's located at archives.gov. So if you're not in the archives.gov, you won't be able to see it because we're looking at the actual document. To
Oh, you want to look at the actual document?
Yeah, you got to look at the actual document.
But at the same time, I'm attempting to pull it up as well.
Yeah, This is
But
what I was able to access.
that's
Just
it. Article
previous
1.
slide.
Go to
Is it?
Article 1.
Article 1.
Yep. Article 1, the style of this confederacy shall be. Anybody that knows anything about title law would know if you change one letter from uppercase to lowercase, then you've just changed what the entire entity is. It's not the same.
Yep. Title and style of this confederacy shall be the capital T.
Yes, sir. So what you're seeing in the Treaty of Paris is not the United States of America Republic. It's the United States of America. And they changed the name in that agreement. It was actually began being the treaty in the East India Trading Company. Then they changed it to exactly what Doc is showing. Well, not what Doc is showing, but they changed it to lowercase t, the United States of America. Then they changed it again, and they changed it to the United States. Then in 1871, they changed it to the United States Incorporated. I'm going to do a screen share now as well.
Okay.
You guys see that on a full screen?
Yes. Okay.
The title of this confederacy shall be the United States of America. Articles of Confederation finalized in 1781. Now, I can bring up more evidence to show. A lot of people think that the U.S. Army is a creation of the U.S. Constitution. Truth is, the U.S. Army was created, and it was actually established here before the U.S. Constitution. The U.S. Army was established here in 1784. You can refer to the Shays Rebellion and see that it was created in 1784. And if you have good writings of Shays Rebellion, you'll find that Massachusetts militia refused to put down civilians who were being conquered by legislation. That was our first crisis act that was created here in America. There's a lot about this that needs to be known. There's a lot that needs to be understood about the effects of different documents in law, what the effects of different documents they are considered instruments as well. They play a particular song. And if you think that you can restore something and you can miss a part of it, like the compact, you're not going to be successful. If you think that you can form common law grand juries under the U.S. Constitution without first being a compact of a people in your nation state, your sovereign state, and having a delegate that is sent by that authority, if you're trying to take action being a divided inhabitant without political rights to defense, you will suffer the wrath, folks. Will suffer the wrath. We're trying to bring forward the information that's known, that's needed to be known. Every one of the steps must be followed. You cannot have a will and forget half of the spokes. Not creating a new will. It's already created. All we're doing in compact is repopulating. We're repopulating with a current permanent population of people living today. And it's necessary. It's not derived by nature. I'll yield with that.
I think that's a good spot to wrap it up. You covered a lot. A lot.
All right, folks, we probably have used up a couple hours of time. I hope that our short, brief times of silence where we was having to reference material, you'll still be able to maintain attention span to get through all of this and continue to rewind it and go back to it. Refer to the source documents yourself. Prove yourself, because once you do that research and you have learned for yourself, you cannot unlearn this. You cannot unlearn it. You only got to learn it one time. All right, this concludes the meeting of the minds. Go
I
ahead.
have one other thing. Realize that there is one sovereign in the universe, and all other recognized sovereigns are derivative of his authority, the authority which is given by nature's God, Yahuwah Sholahim, upon which resides in us and whose spirit flows through us. Everything which is being done is being done under his authority through us to reestablish his kingdom on this planet, to bring it down so that we can all move forward to what it is that he sees best for us and our children for time immemorial. And the only thing we need to do is to take action, accept the gifts that are given, so that he can bring down his abundance and his liberty through his spirit that lives through us. And with that, I yield. Amen.
And that's how we stand in his image without that, abandoning it. So that's all I got to say. I yield.
Amen.
By compact, you're in the Almighty's image. You've not been restricted in person. You're in the dictates of your natural creator. Your conscience is your own by his hand. And without that, to forsake that image, to take a capacity of a corporate identity solely, I don't know anybody with full disclosure that would do that. Only in a time of war on the high seas, when it's necessary, in a time of necessity. And I should pull up the law of necessity and explain that as well. There is a law of necessity in circumstances that are not of our own creation to prevent a greater harm. We took the action necessary. So with that, I'll move forward and I'll say, in closing, the American First Republic is not intending to take any action whatsoever of a sovereign citizen. A sovereign citizen, that's an oxymoron, except in FBI definition, that's domestic terrorism. Sovereign is a body, a legislative body by the authority of a people, and compact by that authority. That's a body, not just one. A citizen is one. That means it's an oxymoron. Those two words don't belong together. They prey on ignorance. Don't let it be yours. Don't be in a crossfire in this information war at hand. This is the fourth industrial revolution. Some criminals are attempting to turn God's creation into their device. Beware of what's around you. This is not intended as fear. You're not to be in fear as far as I'm concerned. This nation was founded on your right and on each individual's right to have faith and to, practice or worship that faith, so long as it's not persecuted upon another. You cannot persecute another for their faith. It was founded on the right to follow your Father, your Creator, your natural, God's nature and nature's God. There's several different legions. I don't want to go into all of that right now, but I will say this: the American First Republic is not here for the purpose of war. We're here in peace and to defend that peace and to offer peace to the entire world. Good night, folks. That concludes the meeting of the minds for this week.
One more thing.
Yes, sir. I'll let you close it out.
Anybody that sees this video and wants more information, please come to the article Federation.org and check it out.
Didn't understand that. You're cutting out, Doug.
That's all right, Doug. I'll get it. It's theafr.org. theafr.org. I'm going to do one more screen share and I'm going to show our app. We do have an app now. That's the wrong screen share. Give me a second.
As you're bringing that up, I just want to read 2 Corinthians 3:17. Now the Lord is that Spirit, and where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty.
All right, folks. That's well said. All right, we have an app, and we're going to be putting the link for that as well in with the video. You can add our app to your home screen. You can access all of our things, all of our documents, all of our different sites, see our sites, https://theafr.org. That's our post office. It's a virtual post office. We have the articles. You can click here for Articles of Confederation, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, Tuesday and Sunday Assembly Compact, which is where we are tonight. That's actually our Telegram. Click here for the American First Republic Post Office. That takes you directly to the site. Click here for computer linked Zoom, which we have on Saturday nights. Click here for Zoom. If you can call it in instead of being on a computer. And you click here for public publication of record. We have a newspaper, all of our works. We take action being witnesses to your competent work in action. Click here for call the governor, myself. You can call me 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. Click here for the governor's site. See the work of the governor's site as well. You can find our Rumble right here next to the symbol of the Facebook. You can find our Facebook right here. You can find our Proclamation of Emancipation, where you're proclaiming that you're separate from a curator. You have no further taking your next actions without a curator, without having a what is known as I'm losing my words. Power of attorney or a curator. You're independent from those things and all claims of that. Declaration of Independence is next after your Proclamation of Emancipation. Declaration of Independence separating, be added to city-state empire, because that has been something created and put in place since the Civil War and since the Treaty of Paris, or the Declaration of Independence. There was actually two Declarations of Independence. One was the United States of America. The other was the United States of America in 1776. I'll bring that forward in future dates. You click on page 1. That was the heading page. And it'll take you to the next document. That's the social compact. If you wish to be an inhabitant and a people, you can stop there. If you wish to have the ability to take action in commerce with all of the protections of the society, then you'll move into the restricted person, which is natural person, and it's not corporate. Actually, the natural person can take action in its own behalf. Corporate is of the inferior order. Natural is of a republic. So that explains those documents and our app. I'll try to get the link in there for the app as well. I'll try to get all of our links in for this video. I'll stop share now. I'm sorry that this has taken so long, but there is a lot that has been covered here tonight. And I really hope people take the time, go to the source document links that we will provide. Tap on the Control and the F key of your computer. You'll get a search bar, separate search bar. Type in the words as you watch the video. Read for yourself. Have some critical thinking. Neutral. You're going to have to let go of all of the bias that has been programmed within us in order to be able to have a full comprehension and educated decision. That concludes the meeting of the mind tonight, unless someone else has something to bring forward. All right, folks, I'm going to stop the recording now. We'll try to get another recording out again in about 1 week. And this here will end the meeting of the minds and fact-finding tonight. Good luck to all, everybody. I pray that God brings this nation back to being a peaceful compact. Keep God's nation acknowledging God first in all we do. That's not no identity to be ashamed of. It's not no identity to forget or forsake.